Hello, I'm Dr. Chris Zimmer, and like many of you, I'm looking for the day and hour of the rapture, and it seems there's been a very exciting development. I've been looking for this, a little bit over 2 years now, doing these videos, and it seems we may be coming to the end now. In 2023, we found the time, 8:53:23 a.m., and then in 2024, we got the day, 7/1, we got Tishrei 1, the day that the rapture would occur. And then in 2025, just last year, it looks like we went quite a ways in looking at which day. Was it actually we're looking at Rosh Hashanah. Was it, the 7/1, or is it Nisan 1? So it looks like we've got that tied down as well last year. But this year, 2026, it looks like the year of the rapture is actually being revealed. So this is pretty exciting. I've got a lot to tell you. Let me get started. This is the USS Belknap. It was a guided missile cruiser launched in 1963. And if you'll notice, the hull number 26 kind of matches the year that we're in, 2026 right now. The Belknap, however, was severely damaged in a collision with the aircraft carrier John F. Kennedy on 22nd November 1975 off the coast of Sicily. A fire broke out on Belknap following the collision, during which her aluminum superstructure collapsed after it was weakened by the heat. 7 sailors were killed on the Belknap and 1 on John F. Kennedy. So this begs the question, does this mean there's fire and destruction on 7/1, or what would be Tishrei 1 in 2026? So a short outline, let's just look at what we're going to talk about. Let's re-examine our method of counting. I believe we need to expand the way that we count to a new way in order to find the year. The 4 witnesses, 2026 is the year. Number 1 is 9/11 and the 2023-2026 connection. Number 2 is why Esther is missing from the Dead Sea Scrolls. Number 3, the Revelation 12 sign points to the rapture date, and I just needed to take it a bit further and find a definitive end to the Revelation 12 sign, and I believe I found that. In number 4, the 4 Bible books revealing the date of the rapture. We looked at this before, and now I believe there's a way to find the actual year from that. New 2026 code found hidden in the number pi, and recent news, parallels, and the names. So let's get started. Quickly, let's just go through the way to count. And previously, I had been counting in terms of time elapsed or duration. And that worked really, really well when we had day counts. Remember, we had to count the days from a certain point. And in one case, we had 726, and for Harpazo and so on and so forth. That worked out really well. Well, let's look at an example. 1970 to 1973. If we want to count the duration, we simply start in 1971 and go on. And we find it's a duration of 3 years. We don't count 1970, the first year, because a full year hasn't elapsed yet. So that's been working real well. But in mathematics, the number of elements in a set is called the cardinality of the set. So I believe this time we need to look at the elements in a set. And in that case, if we count the years, 70 to 73, then we have to count the first year. And we have a 4-year span in that. And there's examples from the Bible that do the same thing. In Luke 3:1, in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar. So if you count the 15th year, that means you have to count the first year as year number 1. In Ezra 1:1, in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a full year had not yet elapsed in terms of time. However, we can say we're in the first year because we're counting that first year as part of a set. All right, so that enough said about that. We'll use this a little later. Let's get started. And the first one is 9/11, The Harbinger. And The Harbinger was a book by Jonathan Cahn in where he drew parallels between ancient Israel and the 9/11 events. And it looked like America was coming under judgment, just like Israel was for falling away from God. They had a first limited and smaller strike that took place. 19 years went by, and then all of a sudden, when they still didn't return to God, then there was total destruction. And I believe that's when they were carted off in bondage. So anyway, and something similar may be happening to the United States. On 9/11, President George W. Bush, during his address to the nation on September 11, 2001, read Psalm 23 to provide comfort and reassurance to the American people. Tonight, I ask for your prayers for all those who grieve, for the children whose worlds have been shattered, for all whose sense of safety and security has been threatened. And I pray they will be comforted by a power greater than any of us, spoken through the ages in Psalm 23. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Okay, so after George W. Bush spoke those words on September 11th in 2001, it begs the question, was this a harbinger pointing to 2023? Okay, so let's look at Psalm 23 in its totality. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Okay, so in every single sentence, it seems to refer to God. It refers to the Lord. And even the beginning and the end of Psalm 23, it takes place with the Lord. So this begs the question, who is the subject of Psalm 23? And of course, it's the Lord, Yahweh, or Jehovah, depending on how you want to pronounce it. The Tetragrammaton, the four-letter name of God. So let's draw some conclusions from that. 9/11 conclusions. And number one, destruction of the World Trade Center may portend a future cataclysm. And there was more than that too, the Pentagon and whatnot. But all those events seem to point towards a future cataclysm, perhaps like Jonathan Cahn's The Harbinger. Psalm 23 appears to point forward to 2023. The subject of Psalm 23 is the Lord, or Yahweh. The numerical value of Yahweh in Hebrew is 26, pointing us to 2026. So now we have a range of years, 23 to 26. 9/11, 26 at sundown to 9/12 at sundown is the Feast of Trumpets. 7/1 on the Hebrew calendar. And in both cases, 9/11 is the common date. I mean, between 9/11, 2001 and 9/11, 2026, yes. Psalm 23 implies we should not fear because he is with us. Therefore, he will save us from the destruction on that day upon the rapture. So here we have 9/11 pointing to Feast of Trumpets this year. Okay, now let's go to Esther and why Esther is missing from the Dead Sea Scrolls. And Esther is the only book of the Hebrew Bible missing from the Dead Sea Scrolls. And there's a quote from deadseascrolls.org. Among the scrolls are partial or complete copies of every book in the Hebrew Bible except the book of Esther. So it's obviously or very prominently missing from the Hebrew Bible, from the Dead Sea Scrolls. Just a brief synopsis. King Ahasuerus, I guess that's how it's pronounced, of Persia commands Queen Vashti to appear before him on the final day of a 7-day feast, but she refuses and is consequently banished. The king seeks a new queen, a wedding banquet is held, and the title is given to Esther in the 7th year of the king's reign. Esther, a cousin of Mordecai, was a member of the Jewish community in the exilic period. Mordecai refuses to bow down before the king's grand vizier, Haman, who then plots to kill the Jewish people along with Esther. However, Mordecai foils a plot to kill the king and is honored as a result. Another banquet is held in which Esther seeks the king's favor and makes a request. The evil plan of Haman to destroy Queen Esther and her people is reversed. Haman is impaled on the very stake he set up for Mordecai. And it is traditionally believed this is the origin of the Feast of Purim. So, in a nutshell, that's the synopsis of Esther. There are a lot more details, but, well, let's continue. And let's have a discussion of this. God is mentioned explicitly, is not mentioned explicitly. His name is not in there. But the king is likened to him in his power. The Tetragrammaton is mentioned in 4 acrostics in the text. And acrostics are letter skips, equidistant letter skips in the text. So it's not mentioned explicitly, but it's hidden. The book of Esther is about 2 weddings, and a whole series of banquets structure the work, 2 by the king, 1 by Vashti, 3 by Esther, and the joyful banqueting that ends the book. There are several banquets in all. The first wedding to Queen Vashti ends in her banishment, which is reminiscent of the divorcement of the Jews after they rejected their Messiah and King, Jesus. The 7-day feast may foreshadow the tribulation period, or Jacob's trouble. The king's wedding to Esther and her subsequent appeal to the king, in which he saves Esther and the Jewish people, appears to represent the church in Esther and Jesus in the king. Engaged in a wedding and banquet, and at the end of this 7-year banquet tribulation, the Jews are saved. Esther, the church, is obviously missing from the Dead Sea Scrolls, which represents something similar to the Rapture. Okay, so I've shown this quite a while back, and I didn't really know the full extent of it. Now I think I do. And this is the occurrence of the Tetragrammaton in the Hebrew Bible. So the numbers you see are the number of times the Tetragrammaton appears in that particular book. And 2 numbers stand out very obviously. 153 as in the 153 big fish, and 726 as in harpazo, or rapture. And since those stand out, let's look at those books. Well, the 153 takes us to 2 Samuel, which is the 10th book of the Hebrew Bible. And then one more we can look at is Esther, because that's missing from the Hebrew Bible in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And that's the 17th book. And then finally, Jeremiah at the 726, which is the 24th book. So those are the ones we focus on. And 2 Samuel is the 10th book, shown 153 times, where David becomes king of all Israel and is a foreshadow of Christ as the head of the church. And then in Jeremiah, the 24th book, if we omit that book from the Hebrew Bible as it is in the Dead Sea Scrolls, then we see that it becomes the 23rd book, and that's 726 times. And Jeremiah was the weeping prophet who warns Judah as they fall into Babylonian captivity. A possible warning of Israel's captivity immediately after the rapture and, of course, tribulation. So let's put it together. We have 2 times, since it's the 2nd book, 2 Samuel, 2 times 10, gives us the first part of the year, 20. And if we join that with Jeremiah, we get 23, or 2023. And you're probably thinking, why do we have to have the whole year? Well, we have to show the exact century, because this is going to be far in the future from the Hebrew, when the Hebrew Bible was laid down. So from that point of view, it's 2023. Okay, so the Tetragrammaton hidden in Esther. The name Yahweh is hidden in secret acrostics 4 times in Esther, and then the name EHYH, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that in the Hebrew, but that would be I am that I am, is there once as well. And then acrostics, of course, are equidistant letter skips in the text. Okay, so it shows up, the Tetragrammaton, that is, shows up in the first and second acrostics, first backward, then forward, and then the third and fourth, again, backward and forward, and then in the fifth acrostic, it shows up as I am that I am. The first pair concern Queen Vashti. Vashti is deposed and the title given to Esther instead. The second pair reverses the evil plan of Haman to destroy Queen Esther and her people. And the final acrostic tells the Jewish people this is the same I am who brought them out of Egypt. So that's an explanation according to the text, according to the story. But I believe there's more to it than that. I believe that the Tetragrammaton, since this is the subject not only in 9/11 but in Esther as well, that it corresponds to those years of revealing that we've been going through for quite a while now, 2023 to 2026. And if we do the same thing here, if we count elements in a set, the way that we count, then Yahweh, the 4 letters of the Tetragrammaton, can be dispersed over these 4 years, counting 1, 2, 3, 4, giving us the 4 years of revealing. So the Tetragrammaton appears 4 times in acrostics in Esther, in line with 4 years of revealing, so that's a clue that we need to do this. And then the 5 acrostics total may allude to the 5th feast to be fulfilled, and that's Trumpets. So not only is it telling us the years of revealing, it tells us where we're going to end up, and that's at the Feast of Trumpets. Okay, so some conclusions here that we can draw. The Lord plays the role of the king in Esther. A marriage, a wedding, and 7 banquets are mentioned involving 2 queens. Vashti displeases the Lord and is set aside, possibly in the role of the Jews who have rejected their king, or Jesus. The king focuses on Esther, the church, for the banquet of which there are 7, representing 7 years. Ultimately, the Jews are saved out of it. Esther, again, is the only book missing from the Dead Sea Scroll account, as the church will be after the rapture. Yahweh, numerical value 26, is also missing from the text, except in acrostics. 2 Samuel and Jeremiah established the year 2023 with 153 and 726. Yahweh 4 times in acrostics points us to the 4 years of the revealing leading up to 2026. The 5th acrostic, I am, leads us to the 5th feast day to be fulfilled, Trumpets. And 9/11 to 9/12, sundown to sundown, 2026 is the Feast of Trumpets and is likely the rapture and the start of tribulation. Okay, so let's move on to the Revelation 12 sign. And I know last time I said I had it solved, but if you remember, I left you not knowing for sure where the end of the sign was, and I believe now I found out how to find the end of the sign. Okay, so here's the classic Revelation 12 sign that's shown all over the internet. This is the sign on 9/23/2017, and this is at 8:53:23 p.m. This is an evening sign, IDT from Jerusalem. Let me read it. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. Okay, so that's the sign. And if we go to the next day, this is 9:23. This shows where the sign begins with the moon under her feet. If we draw a line through her feet at that particular time, then this proves that it's actually under her feet at that time. Okay, so now let's skip ahead one more day to 9:24, and we're at 10:28 a.m. A transition occurs where all elements appear as a morning sign just above the horizon. From sundown on 9:23 to sundown on 9:24 is technically the same day, according to the way that you would count days in the Hebrew or in Jerusalem, for that matter. And this is what makes the Revelation 12 sign a morning sign on that day, is because it shows up both on the evening of the 23rd and the morning of the 24th. There's a transition there. This also seems to point us forward to look for another transition, and we will see one. I'll show you that in just a moment. If we go to 9:25, we can still see the same Revelation 12 sign, including the moon, at 11:19 in the morning. It's still an AM sign, and all these elements appear in the morning just above the horizon. We go forward to 9:26, and now the moon is just peeking above the horizon, but all elements still appear as a morning sign just above the horizon. So, and then this is at 11:59, so just at the last moment of AM, we still have the Revelation 12 sign on 9:26. If we move forward one more day, on 9:27, that same position, with the moon just peeking up over the horizon, a transition occurs at 12:50 p.m., where all elements now appear as an afternoon sign just above the horizon on a different day. So, and this does not show up as an evening sign the night before, so it's not a transition from p.m. to a.m. this time. It's a transition from 9:26 to 9:27, 2 different days. The moon is now between Ophiuchus and Serpents, and is this too far to remain a part of the sign? This is already way past Libra. But I don't think that's the divider. I don't think that's what differentiates this. I think it's this transition that tells us 9:27 is not part of the sign. 9:26 is the last day of the sign. Okay, so this means we have to add another day from what I showed you the last time. We have 23rd through the 26th is the Revelation 12 sign. And if you notice, the Feast of Trumpets in 2017 is September 20th through the 22nd. So this is just before the Revelation 12 sign, and that'll become important in just a moment. And this year, the Feast of Trumpets is on sundown on September 11th to sundown on September 12th. Last time we looked at Revelation 4, starting at Revelation 12, which is the sign. A great sign appeared, and her child was snatched up to God and to his throne. This is talking about the rapture. So if we look forward to Revelation 4, which talks about a door standing open in heaven, the voice I had first heard speaking to me like a trumpet said, "Come up here." So this is from the sign to the actual rapture. And the last time we counted this like it was, a duration or an expanse in time where we don't count the first chapter. And I believe that's wrong. I believe we need to count every chapter involved as though it were part of a set or elements in a set. If we do that, we now wind up with 9 chapters, and that's counting elements. I don't care how you count it, you can't come up with 10. So we went from 8, not counting the first one, to 9, counting all as elements of a set. So this is where the counting becomes important. And since we have 9 chapters, now we can count 9 Feast of Trumpets from 2017. The Revelation 12 sign brings us to Feast of Trumpets 2026. So we can't count 2017 because the Feast of Trumpets is just before the sign. So the next Feast of Trumpets we can count starts in 2018. So if we count all those up to 2026, which I believe the rapture is going to happen on the Feast of Trumpets, we count 9 Feast of Trumpets. I believe this is the correct way to count the Revelation 12 sign now. I think we've got it. I think this actually gives us the year now. And something interesting also that happens in the proximity of the 2017 Revelation 12 sign on 9/12 this year is Venus, which represents Jesus, right? Venus, the bright morning star, which is what Jesus in Scripture is said to be the bright morning star, shows up near the legs of Virgo as if waiting to see the child birth. Child is Jupiter, but the child is already caught up to God. It's up way over Virgo's head. In fact, it's up past Leo. If you notice, Jupiter's way up at the top of the screen. So it's as if this is depicting the rapture on that day. Okay, so some conclusions. The Revelation 12 sign depicts the rapture and the birth of Jesus, who was the first to be caught up to God. The sign takes place over 4 days, consistent with the 4 years of revealing, 2023 to 2026. From Revelation 12, the sign, to Revelation 4, representing the rapture, we count 9 chapters in all. Revelation 4 states, "The voice like a trumpet said, 'Come up here,' directing us to the Feast of Trumpets for the rapture." Applying the 9 chapters discovered in Revelation to count Feast of Trumpets from 2017, the year of the sign, takes us to the Feast of Trumpets in 2026, or September 11th to 12th, sundown to sundown. So here's another sign that takes us directly to Feast of Trumpets this year. Now, the 4 books say 7/1/2024, and I believe 24 was the year that this information was revealed, that we now know that it's going to happen on Tishrei 1, but there's more to it. Okay, so Psalm 71 has 24 verses, and we found that the places where it talks about rapture, where we're crying, this person is crying out, deliver me, save me. Deliver me occurs in 2 verses, 2 and 4, pointing us to look at 24. But then we have another one, and bring me up again from the depths of the earth. In other words, rapture me. And then in 24 it says, for they are brought to shame who seek my hurt. And that's after the rapture, they're going to be shamed, the ones that are left behind. So we've got 24 mentioned twice, but one of them is as a year. So the number 24 is mentioned here twice. If we add 24 days to 7/1, we arrive at 725, which is harpagmos in Strong's, and that means rapture. I believe the other time, the 2024, representing the year, is telling us this is the year that this day was revealed. Micah 7 is post-rapture, and this is 20 verses. Woe is me, they've gathered the summer fruit, saying, oh, the rapture's already happened. The good man has perished or taken out of the earth. That's in verse 2, so we have 1 and 2. And then we have in the 4th verse, it's back to the rapture again. The day of thy watchman and thy visitation or reckoning cometh. And that's the day of the rapture. So we have 7, Micah 7, first verse, 7:1, and then 24, giving us the year. Add the 20 verses to the beginning of that, and we get the full date. And it really shouldn't be a date because it's mixed. It's not July 1st, 2024. Sorry about that. It's Tishrei 1 not in 2024, but revealed in 2024. I believe that's the way it's supposed to be read now. So it's not really July 1st, it's Tishrei 1 revealed in 2024. Okay, the third one, and this is John 21, Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 others of his disciples were gathered together. And this is 7 disciples total in verse 2. 3 says he's going on a fishing trip. And then 4 is Jesus standing there on the shore. So he is 1. So we have 7, 1 in 24. Again, this is not the year of the rapture. This is saying, I believe this is saying Tishrei 1 or 7/1 revealed in 2024, and that's when it was revealed. And God He is absolutely perfect in this. He even puts this into the text, the year that it would be revealed, the year that it came out. Fourth and final book is Luke 17, and this is the one where it has the verses, talking about the rapture, 2 men in one bed, the one shall be taken and the other shall be left. So we have 2, 1, 1. We get 2 more instances of that, so we have 3 instances of 2:11 or 2:11, which represents a robbery. And if we look at the kind of an acrostic using the verse numbers, we have 34 through 37 gives us 4, 5, 6, 7. From Strong's, that's Satan. So who is actually robbed here? Satan is robbed. And it's very interesting that in the very last verse, it says, and they answered, said to him, where, Lord? So he said to them, wherever the body is, there the eagles will be gathered together. And Jesus had appointed 70 disciples to go out and preach in Luke 10:1. This makes a total of 71 disciples, including himself. So now we have 7:1. We have 24 chapters, and we can put that together again, not in a full date like this. I should have changed this, sorry about this, but 7:1 is Tishrei 1, revealed, I believe, in the year 2024. So this is, of course, not the year of the rapture. It didn't happen in 2024, but I believe it's revealing when this knowledge would be made known. Okay, so what do we have for conclusions? We have Psalms 7:1, 2024, rapture in the form of a cry to God for rescue. Micah 7:1, 2024, a post-rapture scene of regret. John 7:1, 2024, the rapture portrayed as Jesus on a fishing trip. And Luke 7:1, 24, the rapture portrayed as a robbery where Satan is robbed. And 2024, in all cases, is given as the year the day is revealed. Okay. So, we have 2 Old Testament books. We have 2 in the New Testament, 4 books in all that show us the author must be present in this revelation, because it spans at least 4 books from the Old and New Testament. It is, of course, the Lord Yahweh. He's the only one that can do this. And Yahweh yields 26 from his numerical value, the year of the event. So from all 4 of those books, the 4 represents the Tetragrammaton. That's Yahweh as the author, and Yahweh takes us to 2026. So from all this, we get the year of the rapture. And just to show a few things that we learned over the years, and I've been doing this a little over 2 years, and we got the 84-week timeline that started in 2023 with Be Made Known, and that was on Nisan 1 or March 19th, which started all this, started these 4 years of revealing. And there was also, by Drayton Bunyan, our friend, found in the number pi, that there were clues from John, that from the fishing trip, that showed that all this was being uncovered. So the whole gist of 2023 was that this stuff was being uncovered or revealed. And then from that first year, we got synarpazo, which is another even more descriptive word for the rapture. But we also got the time, 8:53:23 a.m. So we're starting with the time. Then in 2024, we got synarpazo and master of the banquet. We got the fishing hook. We got to guide or to steer. And we got the 2:11 that came out in Luke 17. And the 4 books actually all came out in 2024. And from this now we got 7:1 or Tishrei 1. We got the day revealed. So we had 1 year the time, and then 2024 we have the day. And then in 2025, a couple things happened there as well. We got 777 appeared to show us completion or fulfillment of the rapture revealed in 2025. And we got from the precession of the equinoxes that gave us the message, a gift from God. But it also told us about 111. In other words, the first month of the first day of the first month of the first year, and this is telling us which calendar to look on. So to get completion and fulfillment, which is about to come, this is revealed, and in 2026 the year was finally revealed, and I believe it's 2026. The 84-week timeline, 9/11 gives us 23, so we had the first year of the uncovering, and then Yahweh is used as a gauge to tell us which years to look at, 2023 to 2026. And then 9/11 also foreshadows the coming of the rapture and destruction. The story of Esther reveals the wedding banquet, the hidden name of God 4 times. And then Revelation 12 also takes us to the Feast of Trumpets in 2026. So we get, these are just bits and pieces. There was more revealed than this, but this gives us a really good picture. And in 2026, there's also a number in pi, and we'll look at that in just a moment. So 2025, 2026 in the number pi. In 2025, we had 777, 26, so we had 777 for completion and fulfillment, overlapping with 726, and then, which is harpazo, and then 602, which is revealing, apocalypsis, or revealing or unveiling, and then 4667 was the final Tishrei 1 date. So all that time in 2025, we were being pointed to the correct calendar to use to get that Rosh Hashanah. And we had a 211 overlapping with that 111, and even 153 from the 153 big fish. So we had 211, 153, 111 being revealed in 2025, and we also had a 20 in there before that, which means gladness, joy, exceeding joy, and then 89 without ceasing. So this is really prominently pointing towards the rapture and what's going to happen soon. And this tells us which calendar to use, civil or religious. Then, also in 2025, if we look at that 211, 111, 923 pops up as the date, and that was Tishrei 1, which kind of sewed it for us. In 2025, that told us which date to look at for sure. And then we get without wavering, meet, things without measure, and to unveil or uncover. But again, this was the year of revealing, telling us to consider 9/23/25 the true Rosh Hashanah, because it was really 1/1 originally. Okay, now 2026, we've got a new one, and this is 021, 9/11, 2026, and 2/11. So we've got 021, which means to jump for joy, exult, be exceeding glad, with exceeding joy, to rejoice greatly. Okay, so we get that message again. And then if we look just before that, though, we see 275 is without carefulness, free from anxiety, free from care. But then we have in 114, despise, reject, bring to nothing, frustrate, disannul, and cast off. So this seems to be talking about those who would be rejected or left behind from the rapture. 9/11, of course, gives us the day, and it's sundown on 9/11 in Jerusalem. That's when it starts. In the Americas, it would be 9/11 on the western half of the United States, roughly, and it would be 9/12 on the eastern half. And we have 2/11, which in this case, if you look it up, is alabaster box. What is an alabaster box? It's white, pure white. And 2/11 also is the robbery. And then 651, apostleship. And there's a 5555, which is chrysolite. Chrysolite is a precious stone of golden color. And we are likened, I forget what books it is, I think it's Ezra or one of those, but we as God's people are likened to a precious stone or a precious jewel. Okay, so let's just look at some recent signs. And on February 17th, 2026, the worst avalanche in California history happened near Lake Tahoe. And for 4 days, 8 dead with 1 missing, and presumed dead, 6 were rescued. On the 5th day, 9 dead total were recovered. So this kind of ties in with those 9 Feast of Trumpets, I guess. We've seen 8 FOTs since the 2017 Revelation 12 sign, and we're waiting on 1 more for the rapture, for a total of 9. And on the 5th day, 5 represents, of course, the 5th feast to be fulfilled. Now, I know this is a hot button issue, so I really don't want to get into it heavy. I just want to ask a question. And this is about the death of Renee Good in Minnesota. And one fact is, with the shooting, justified or not, a same-sex marriage was dissolved instantly that day. So that's what happened. I want to ask the question, is it possible a higher power intervened? And there's a scripture that brought to mind Isaiah 5:20, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter." So this is just some food for thought. Also, in Sparta, the fireworks explosion, we had kind of a dual event here on 7/1. This takes us to the rapture date, 7/1. And it was 84 days from the day of this explosion to the Feast of Trumpets that year, just like the 84 years of the widow at the temple. And there were 7 missing initially. The whole number of the Holy Spirit, of course, is 7 spirits. And this is a cross superimposed over a mushroom cloud. So here's what looks like nuclear destruction of some sort, and then a cross superimposed over it as salvation. In other words, we would be saved from this destruction through Christ. And this points, of course, forward to 7/1. Another one, the Beirut explosion. There are 2 weddings that took place on August 4th, 2020. And in one case, a bride is safely whisked away after the explosion. And in the other case, there's a screaming bride running, and there's destruction all around her. So we have, again, this duality, or this dichotomy of destruction and salvation at the same time. Also, this year we had Ilya Malinin, who was going for the gold, but then he had a fall, and that destroyed his chances for the gold in that skate. And he's known as the quad god because he did quad revolutions on the ice, quad spins, one right after the other. And is it possible that there was some divine intervention causing the fall, or something else? Who knows? But because this is the year that Yahweh was revealed, is this God saying somehow that he's the true quad God? In fact, he is. So who knows? And I redone this slide that I call the names because it actually simplifies now that we have the final piece of information, I believe. And we start off with the Holy Spirit, which is 7. Then we have Yahweh, which is numerical value 26. Put them together, what do you get? Harpazo. And then Matthew 23:9, call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father. And this is telling us to look at 1. So for the Father, if we look at H1 in Strong's, it comes up Father. That's exactly what it means. And if we put now together 7/1 and 26, does this say Tishrei 1 in 2026? Do we already have the full date of the rapture just in the first 2 names? And that's all in God the Father, the Holy Spirit and the Father. Strong's H853 is not translated, but it can be taken as Jesus by deduction, who is the Aleph Tav. First and last letters of the Hebrew alphabet, add those together and you get a value of 23. Revelation 22:16, I, Jesus, have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root, the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star. So this tells us 8:53:23 in the AM, gives us the time. And then finally, if we put that all together and we look at God's name, is literally written in Jerusalem, the name of his city, which is both in the eastern wall and on the Temple Mount, and in the mountain sign indicating the time zone is IDT. So the names are Holy Spirit, Father, Son, and Jerusalem. So from all this, we seem to get the date, the time, and the time zone. So this is pointing to Feast of Trumpets this year, 9/11 to 12, sundown to sundown at 8:53:23 a.m. If you plug all that into the chart that I've been using all along but has been wrong up to this point, I believe we have the final piece of information we need, the year, and this is what it would look like. So with all that, I really and truly hope to see you in the clouds, Feast of Trumpets this year, and God bless.